Welcome to the Fear and Greed Business News Afternoon Report for Thursday, the 2nd of November 2023. I'm Sean Aylmer. Every afternoon, we've got the 5 stories that happened today that you need to know about. Story number 1, the S&P ASX 200 closed up nearly 1% today to 6,890 points after a strong lead-in from Wall Street. That was on the back of no rate hike in the world's largest economy. More on that shortly. The banks led the way and ANZ led the banks up 2.2%. Some of the tech stocks did very well, mimicking their Wall Street brethren. REA jumped more than 4%, while WiseTech Global and Xero were both up 3.4%. Industrial property giant Goodman Group did well, so too CSL, Fortescue Metals Group, Transurban, and particularly James Hardie, which earns much of its income in the US. The gold stocks did poorly, with Northern Star, Newmont, that's the old Newcrest, and Evolution Mining all off sharply, so too the energy companies, with Woodside and Santos both down more than 2% on the back of lower oil prices. Story number 2, the US Federal Reserve left interest rates on hold this morning, but left the door open for further rate hikes. The Fed said activity expanded at a strong pace in the third quarter in the world's biggest economy, and job gains remain strong and inflation is still elevated. As a result, the central bank continues to consider the extent of additional policy firming that may be appropriate to return inflation to 2% over time. Also, the US Treasury said it planned to sell slightly fewer longer-term bonds next week. Now, those two pieces of news combined pushed bond yields lower and equities higher, with the S&P 500 rising more than 1%, while the tech-heavy Nasdaq jumped 1.6%. Story number 3, Foreign Minister Penny Wong this morning confirmed that 20 Australian citizens have escaped Gaza as part of a group of up to 335 evacuees following the reopening of the Rafah crossing to Egypt. About 20 Australians remain in Gaza. The Australians joined American, French, British and Italian passport holders leaving the region. The evacuations came as Israeli airstrikes pounded Gaza's largest refugee camp for a second day, with the Israel Defense Force claiming the death of another key Hamas military commander. But Senator Wong says the way Israel exercises its right to defend themselves really matters. She called on Israel to observe the rules of war, adding that there had been a devastating loss of innocent lives. Meanwhile, US President Joe Biden said Israel and Hamas militants ought to pause fighting in order to allow time to free hostages being held in the Gaza Strip, but stopped short of supporting a full ceasefire. Story number 4, plenty of corporate news around today. Brookfield and EIG Partners have upped their bid for Origin Energy to $9.53 a share, pushing the total value close to $20 billion and declaring the bid final. But major shareholder AusSuper said it's not enough. Shares in Infratil rose 2% following news that construction at the renewable energy developer's major US solar farm is underway. Battery metals hopeful Sayona Mining has unearthed new lithium hits at its North American operation in Quebec, Canada. That caused its share price to jump 8%, the best of the top 200 today. And global asset manager Janus Henderson plans to delist from the ASX. It's also listed on the New York Stock Exchange, and there's just not enough buying and selling of stock in Australia to make it all worthwhile. And story number 5, CSR hopes a brighter outlook for its building products business will more than offset a loss-making year at its aluminium division, which owns a quarter stake in the New South Wales Tomago smelter, which has been hit by very high energy bills. Chief Executive Julie Coates said there's a solid pipeline of detached housing construction that runs through until June next year. She's confident that any further rate rises won't hurt demand. The company behind Gyprock Plasterboard and PGH Bricks and Pavers reported a 12% drop in earnings for the 6 months to the end of September, even though revenue was up 5%. The building products division made a record profit. That's it for the afternoon report for Thursday, the 2nd of November 2023. Adam Lang and I will be back tomorrow morning with the Friday edition of Fear and Greed Business News. I'm Sean Aylmer. Enjoy your evening.